Hi, and welcome to the next to last, or the penultimate summer Bible study session. I'm Eric, I'm the pastor here at Trinity.
And I'm Erin, I'm a member here and married to that one.
And our first reading is from Isaiah 58. If you remove the yoke from among you, the pointing of the finger, the speaking of evil, if you offer your food to the hungry and satisfy the needs of the afflicted, then your light shall rise in the darkness, and your gloom be like the noonday. The Lord will guide you continually and satisfy your needs in parched places and make your bones strong. And you shall be like a watered garden, like a spring of water whose waters never fail. Your ancient ruins shall be rebuilt. You shall rise up the foundations of many generations. You shall be called the repairer of the breach, the restorer of streets to live in. If you refrain from trampling the Sabbath and pursuing your own interests on my holy day, if you called the Sabbath a delight and the holy day of the Lord honorable, if you honor it, not going your own ways, serving your own interests, or pursuing your own affairs, then you shall take delight in the Lord, and I will make you ride upon the heights of the earth. I will feed you with the heritage of your ancestor Jacob, for the mouth of the Lord has spoken. What caught your attention?
So what what characteristics would you use to call a day honorable in 2025?
That's a very good question.
Because we don't really use honor language so much.
Well, because we don't have the honor shame culture. Yeah.
So what would be either another adjective, or what would a day that we would call honorable be like?
I don't think we get a full day.
Well, right. It'd be like a 10-minute break that is honorable.
Or maybe like the parade that you do for 4th of July or Memorial Day. That is showing honor. But of course that's on top of everything else we do on those days, including the sales and the going out to see fireworks and the yada 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 yada. What is honorable? I don't have a good answer for you. I am caught reading through this. There's in church world, there is a divide between those who say we should go out in the world and live the faith, and those who say that the point of the church is to gather together and be church together. And this passage says it's both. Because
it can't be one or the other.
Yeah.
I don't understand that there's a divide here. It makes no sense.
I agree with you, but it is an old divide in the church. Like it really is. But there is this lovely how do we make success happen in today's world? And I think the answer is the same, by the way. According to this passage, it's don't blame other people, don't speak evil of other people, make sure those who are hungry get fed, make sure those who have afflictions are taken care of, and then make sure that we discover again delight in God. Now, I'm not saying the country should do this, I'm saying that we Christians should do this. That part of what is presented here is this both and of it's about being in the world and also our relationship with God. And it's in the Old Testament, which yay, right, because it's in the Old Testament.
So not a tall order at all.
I mean, I'm not saying that. I'm not saying but it's a lot of this. We look at the world and who are the ones who get all the fame, who are the ones who make the headlines, who are the ones who we hold up. It's not the folks who are doing this work. It's not the folks who are taking delight in the Lord. So maybe we need to rethink what it means for something to be honorable. Rethink what it means for something to receive God's glory, to be bolstered by God. It's that what does success look like question. And in this case, it involves a lot of checking yourself, helping others, and remembering God, which I think can be summed up pretty quickly in 2 simple sentences.
Yes, but it's infinitely harder to actually do that.
I know it.
So the psalm
Yeah. Sure.
is Psalm 103, verses 1 through 8. Bless the Lord, O my soul, and all that is within me. Bless God's holy name. Bless the Lord, O my soul, and forget not all God's benefits, who forgives all your sins and heals all your diseases, who redeems your life from the grave and crowns you with steadfast love and mercy, who satisfies your desires with good things, so that your youth is renewed like an eagle's. O Lord, you provide vindication and justice for all who are oppressed. You made known your ways to Moses and your works to the children of Israel. Lord, you are full of compassion and mercy, slow to anger, and abounding in steadfast love. That's a very psalmy psalm.
It is a very psalmy psalm, and yet points out this thing that another divide of the church, and people who think this are in fact wrong, but who say that the God of the Old Testament is this God who is evil and judges and is harsh, and the God of the New Testament is full of grace and love.
Right. Lord, you are full of compassion and mercy.
Not even that. What are God's benefits? God forgives all your sins, heals all your diseases, redeems your life from the grave, crowns you with steadfast.
This does not, wait, no, this does sound familiar. This sounds an awful lot like the language we associate with grace.
Right.
In the psalm, in a lot of language that we hear all the time. That's really why I say it sounds like a very psalmy psalm, because it's got bless the Lord, oh my soul. It's got repetition. It has a lot of the language that we love and repeat, sometimes to the point that we forget what it means and how beautiful it is.
Right. It's in here today, of course, because we're going to end up talking about healing diseases. That's actually the theme of today. But it's a beautiful psalm, and is a great place to turn to when we think that the God of the Old Testament is somehow different than the God of the New Testament. Because nope, same God.
Slow to anger and abounding in steadfast love.
Right. Forgiveness of sins happened before Jesus.
Anyway.
Oh,
Sorry.
camp song.
No liturgy.
Oh, okay, good. Yes. To Hebrews, a reading from Hebrews 12, and I'm sorry, this is a very Hebrews section of Hebrews, so I will do my best to help it make a little bit of sense. You have not come to something that can be touched, a blazing fire and darkness and gloom and a tempest and the sound of a trumpet and a voice whose words made the hearers beg that not another word be spoken to them, for they could not endure the order that was given, if even an animal touches the mountain, it shall be stoned to death. Indeed, so terrifying was the sight that Moses said, I tremble with fear. But you have come to Mount Zion, and to the city of the living God, the heavenly Jerusalem, and to innumerable angels in festal gathering, and to the assembly of the firstborn who are enrolled in heaven, and to God, the judge of all, and to the spirits of the righteous made perfect, and to Jesus, the mediator of a new covenant, and to the sprinkled blood that speaks a better word than the blood of Abel. See that you do not refuse the one who is speaking. For if they did not escape when they refused the one who warned them on earth, how much less will we escape if we reject the one who warns from heaven? And at that time his voice shook the earth. But now he has promised, yet once more I will shake not only the earth but also the heaven. This phrase, yet once more, indicates the removal of what is shaken, that is, created things, so that what cannot be shaken may remain. Therefore, since we are receiving a kingdom that cannot be shaken, let us now show gratitude, by which we may offer to God an acceptable worship with reverence and awe. For indeed, our God is a consuming fire.
Boy, that sounds cheerful.
I'm telling you, this is a very Hebrew passage. So all of the Old Testament imagery is happening in here, right? This is hearkening back to the first encounter on Mount Sinai where Moses went up the mountain and the people of Israel, the Hebrews, because they weren't even officially Israelites yet, the Hebrews, had a lot of problems waiting for Moses to come back down from Mount Sinai, including this commandment of can't even have an animal touch this mountain or else it'll be stoned to death. That caused problems for them, and even Moses was scared of all of this. And there is still this pairing of, and here's what Jesus looks like in comparison to this, right? What Moses and the Hebrews couldn't see, we have been shown, and that's not exactly comforting.
Well, and it's not presented here like it is comforting.
Right.
It's actually presented here like it's,
watch out,
if anything, even more powerful.
Yeah.
Once upon a time the earth shook. Well, now the heavens and the earth
are
shake.
going to shake. Yep.
And you get almost to the end, and then when you get finally to the end, do we finally get, we are receiving a kingdom that cannot be shaken.
Yeah.
Which seems to require all of that lead in. So it would shake literally everything, even more than we could imagine before. Right. It's even more terrifying, and yet we are receiving a kingdom that cannot be shaken, which is hard to in context, doesn't really seem adequate.
No. Well, and given, because in these past weeks we've been working through the book of Hebrews, this is supposed to be this big paintbrush of here's how all of these people who we have read about in the Hebrew scriptures were faithful to God's promises even though they didn't see God's promises. This letter of the Hebrews is being written to those in the second and third generation of Christians who are seeing the first generation die off, going, what's going on, what's happening, and being told that there will be difficulties.
It's bad.
Hold on to God's promises like everybody else before us has, and that's what righteousness looks like, because we know what we're going to be given, which is the fulfillment of God's promises. Boy, it's not exactly.
Well, and all of
exciting.
this surrounded in fire imagery.
Right.
Something that cannot be touched, a blazing fire, for indeed our God is a consuming fire, which I don't know when they put together the lectionary how this felt, but right. These days, in the midst of record August heat waves and fire season, which we now know, maybe it always did have a global impact, but we now know that a fire somewhere in Canada or somewhere else in the world can impact our air quality here. Yep. Not to mention even the danger and the risk to the folks who are closer to it. It's not it's not just, you can't just preach fire and brimstone as if that's symbolism.
Right. Because it's not its own symbolism; it's a real lived experience. I do wonder that you and I both believe that children should be in worship.
Yes.
Deeply. I do get a little sense of, near the end of this, the old curmudgeon who says those kids are being too noisy. Right.
Let us show gratitude.
Well, not even that. Let's offer to God an acceptable worship with reverence and awe.
Yes.
But of course, reverence and awe is about knowing the history, knowing the stories that inspire awe, which is not the same thing as not having kids be noisy and running around in the worship space.
Or not having adults, breathe in the worship space.
Right.
I think sometimes we can get there, right? Yeah. Where we're like, oh my goodness, how come somebody is making the small amount of noise? How come somebody brought in their coffee cup or any number of things that are in fact probably
somebody's in my pew.
Yeah, that are not actually major problems or right. Really all that distracting. We're only distracted because we don't like change.
Well, and are we distracted because it's still hard for us to live into delighting in the Lord?
Yeah.
That even when we come to church, we're bringing our own interests.
If we really delight in Sabbath and we think Sunday morning worship is part of that, does that give us a way of being a little more chill?
Yeah.
Like, it doesn't have to be perfect. It doesn't have to be exactly the way I like it. Like, if I think that song you're singing is, the worst, it's fine, because I delight in the Lord and I don't have to delight in every single thing in the worship service. Does that change?
Yeah.
It's an interesting
that maybe
question.
we sing this song that I hate because you love it.
Yeah, and maybe I can delight in your delight, even
Yes.
if I don't delight in
this
whatever
particular
the
hymn, yes.
imaginary song is.
Right.
I wish I had a song in mind, because then I can make jokes about
On
it.
Eagle's
but-
Wings.
Oh,
Sorry,
yes,
that's mine.
that's
That's
appropriate.
mine.
That actually
I
works
hate
with this
that one.
text,
I hate
because
that
we had an odd eagle reference
We did.
in the last one. Your youth is renewed like an eagle's.
eagles,
I had
right.
no idea that youth and eagles, like eagles' youth being renewed, was any symbolism anywhere. That's something I might have to look up later.
Right. But the hellfire stuff, the consuming fire, like outside of the stories of faith, it's just fear. But what it inspires in fear, that's not reverence.
No, it's
And
just
that's
fear.
not awe. So yeah, the stories make a big difference. Because the stories teach us that God saw all of those folks through the hard times.
Yeah.
Like, that's the point of all of the stories.
Well, and especially in context where we're about to have a gospel that doesn't seem to be fire and brimstone at all, quite
Right.
the opposite.
Right. Speaking of,
So are we ready for the gospel?
I hope so.
Okay. So the gospel is from Luke 10, verses 10 through, Luke 13, verses 10 through 17. Now, Jesus was teaching in one of the synagogues on the Sabbath, and just then there appeared a woman with a spirit that had crippled her for 18 years. She was bent over and was quite unable to stand up straight. When Jesus saw her, he called her over and said, "Woman, you are set free from your ailment." When he laid his hands on her, immediately she stood up straight and began praising God. But the leader of the synagogue, indignant because Jesus had cured on the Sabbath, kept saying to the crowd, "There are 6 days on which work ought to be done. Come on those days and be cured, and not on the Sabbath day." But the Lord answered him and said, "You hypocrites! Does not each of you on the Sabbath untie his ox or his donkey from the manger and lead it to water? And ought not this woman, a daughter of Abraham, whom Satan bound for 18 long years, be set free from this bondage on the Sabbath day?" When he said this, all his opponents were put to shame, and the entire crowd was rejoicing at all the wonderful things being done by him.
Sorry. I love this story because this presents one of the most important things for a healthy congregation, which is direct communication. Right? The leader of the synagogue is upset with Jesus, but rather than talking to Jesus, he addresses all of the people. And the woman didn't even ask to be healed. Right? Jesus saw her and called her over. She did not ask to be healed.
Right, and he's complaining about her. He's not complaining about Jesus. He's not saying, like, he seems to know that complaining about Jesus isn't going to fly, but, complaining about a woman who's been struggling for 18 years, that is perfectly fine.
Right. Yeah.
And Jesus, like Jesus does, goes directly to him, and again, not to the woman, because it's not her problem.
Right.
It's his problem.
Right. Yeah. Like what we see here is a physical healing, but that is always, and I think it's the case with Jesus. It might not always be explicit in Scripture, but I think it's always the case that those physical healings are bound with, and now the community needs to heal because the community's been doing something wrong too.
Right. I mean, without knowing all of the details, it's hard to, we could guess what was wrong with her and what consequences it had. But it's hard to imagine any kind of chronic, it's something that you could have for 18 years that involves being unable to stand up straight.
Some kind of osteoporosis. Probably,
yes,
but,
I mean, a bone condition, chronic pain, maybe it's metaphorical, can't stand up straight because of some kind of, brain condition. It could be any number of things.
Yeah.
But whatever it is, if you have that, there are always going to be social consequences, especially in a society that tends to think the things that happen to you are your fault.
Right.
Which, I mean, let's not kid ourselves. We still think most health conditions are your fault sooner or later. Yeah. So that's going to have, that's going to have...
Given, by the way, as somebody who grew up in a household with a multi-pack-a-day cigarette smoker and had asthma when growing up because of it, please know I had no say in who my mom married, and that had direct consequences on my health. So... what did I do wrong in that?
Well, and so much of our health these days is related to, genetics, or it's related to environmental they're like lifestyle factors, but what they really mean is things you have absolutely no control over, like the air quality where you live.
Right.
Or, what the food system looks like where you live and what you have access to.
Whether or not you can afford or have a way to get access to less.
So many of these things are not, in fact, within our control, and meanwhile, and yet they still can be.
We still blame the individual.
Right, and they still make a big difference to our lives. And so it's not easy, it's not difficult at all to imagine how whatever was going on with her, that Jesus healing is not just freedom from that condition, it's freedom from all of the blame, it's freedom from all of the side effects, it's freedom from not being able to participate in society probably the way that she might have wanted to or been able to otherwise. It really is a significant release in ways beyond even the, woo-woo healing.
Right. And and a lot of it shifts the thought, right? The question that Jesus asks in response to the comment not to Jesus, but to the crowd from the leader of the synagogue, is you were looking at humans and not even putting them on par with livestock. It's that kind of assessment in community standards, and also as self-reflection standards, has that direct tie into the first reading again, right? When is it that we are making people less important than stuff, particularly the stuff that we want to hoard?
and you can do that without. Because he's not wrong, right, that if you would help a animal, how much more so should you help a human? But at the same time, it's not to say that we have we also have an obligation to help animals who are also part of God's good creation, but we can't do that.
Well, or to say it this way, if you're going to see your livestock as your possessions, then you should also see your kindred as your possessions, and that you care for them the same way.
You certainly shouldn't care for them less than.
Right.
Like, maybe as much as would be fine. If we care for all of the things God has given us, that would be something.
Right.
That might even actually be Sabbath.
Right.
There's a thought. What if instead of needing to carve out like a Sabbath day of thou shalt not do stuff, we lived as if everybody and everything mattered?
Well, and that's a direct tie into Lutherans don't understand Sabbath the same way that most other Christian groups do.
I knew you were going to get there.
Well, I mean, you opened the door to it.
Yes, because I knew you were going to get there.
Right. And we should comment on it because we're a Lutheran church, right? That for Lutheran theology and the Lutheran approach to Christianity, Sabbath is about spending time in Scripture with other people.
Well, and I think more broadly spending time with God.
Yeah.
With other people, without other people, all of the above. Okay. Sabbath is for God, not the opposite, not for work, if that makes sense.
Okay.
Did I get that right?
Sure. I would say Sabbath is for us and not for our other ends.
That's also true, right? It's not to become...
It's an attempt to hearken back to before the eating of the forbidden fruit, when God would wander about in the cool of the evenings and spend time with Adam and Eve in the garden. Where do we take those moments together?
Yes, together with people and together with God.
Yes.
And I always want to say when this comes up to take a moment to remember that Luther was writing from what was still largely a medieval world with things like nighttime when it was actually dark.
Right.
And so people didn't need...
That if there was light on in your house, it's because you were rich.
Yeah, people didn't need... today we can work and buy and do and be productive if we...
You can wake up at 3 in the morning and buy something on the internet.
All the time. And so... Even though Luther didn't want to draw everybody's attention to, we need to rest.
Yeah.
I don't think he never, I think he did talk about it sometimes, but it wasn't something he had to, pound home. That doesn't mean that as Lutherans we don't still need to pound that home.
Right.
Because you can't spend time with Scripture if you never spend time with in your own thoughts, in your own head, right. With space in your life to think about other things than just work, or buy, or whatever. Because there's no way to do that. So what we really need today is rest, enough rest that we can then have time to engage and be creative and reflective. And that's not so easy.
No, it's not. Because we have to do it intentionally. I love the idea that God made a day off. Like we would say, well, there's 6 days of creation. I say there's 7 days of creation. Because on the last day, God made rest.
By doing it.
By resting. Like, here's a day to just rest. And tells the people of Israel, take this day of rest. Because this day of rest reminds you that you belong to God. My argument is, God took 1 day of rest. I'm not better than God. I probably need at least 2. Right?
1 day is not enough in today's world. Oh no, if I have 1 day, I'm just going to spend the entire day
doing chores,
cleaning,
doing stuff around
going to the grocery store, putting away the groceries, putting away the laundry I haven't put away yet this week. Like 1 day is not enough because 1 day is not rest.
Right. Because we have structured our society so that most of our week is given over to work, if you're of working age, school, if you're of school age. Only those who are retired have some freedom, but even then, that's given over to doctor's appointments. Let's not fool ourselves. We schedule our time so much that we don't have as much downtime during the week. Yeah.
And that's not a anybody can fix this by themselves kind of thing.
It's a thing we all have to
you must make more time. No, you can't do that.
No.
We are not, humans cannot make more time, and we cannot get so good at doing all our work that we suddenly magically have more free time or whatever. That's a whole system thing too, which is where I think Jesus call to be attentive to our neighbors and notice when people need to be set free from burdens, when expectations aren't serving us anymore. All of those kinds of things comes into play, which is a lot bigger than a 1 week of text. But
right. But the stuff that we can do, right? Going back to that first reading, stop blaming other people. Stop speaking ill of other people. Feed those who are hungry. Help those who need help.
How much, I'm not a big fan of the incremental, if you bought less coffee, you would have this much more money a day or whatever. But think how much more time we would have in our lives if we did just a little bit less gossip.
Right. And spend that time learning again to delight in the Lord.
Or just spend that time breathing and resting.
Right? Yeah. There's things that we can do individually, but what we each can do individually won't fix a broken world. That's what we need God for. That's what.
Well, there's an idea.
But isn't that part of the idea of Sabbath itself too? Learning again and again and again what we need God for. Anything else?
I think that's it for today.
Awesome. Thanks for watching.